Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2019 horror film Polaroid, a film that is directed by Lars Klevberg and it is based on his short film of the same name. Now, my understanding is that this film has been on the shelf since 2017. Something to do with the Harvey Weinstein situation. I think when it all broke, he must have had something to do with this film in regards to production, I'm guessing, and it's been on the shelf since 2017. However, it's just getting its release now, and this is a PG-13 horror film. But hold on, horror fans, don't run away just yet. This is actually a step up from some of the appalling PG teen horrors that we've had over the last few years, and I'm talking about Slender Man and Truth or Dare, Bye Bye Man, to name but three appalling ones right there. And as you would expect, this one would potentially be in the same bracket as those. And while I'm not saying that this is an outstanding horror film, it really isn't, and it could have massively benefited from an R rating, this one. It was actually quite an enjoyable film. And what is this film about? Well, this film focuses on a young girl called Bird, a teenager who is a bit of a recluse, a bit shy, doesn't like to mix with others, and she's got a hobby of photography. And she helps out at this local store. And one day, the son of the guy who owns the store brings her back this camera that he finds at like a second-hand store, second-hand sale, and it's an old Polaroid camera that she knows exactly what it is. It's quite a renowned camera, and she's really pleased with it. However, this camera comes with a pretty dark past, and it belonged to a fairly sinister individual. And unbeknownst to her, anybody that has their picture taken by this camera is then marked for death, basically, by a supernatural entity, shall we say. So this film is very much, the setup of figuring out what's going on, taking pictures, people start turning up dead, putting two and two together. It's the camera, finding out the history of the camera, and then figuring out how they can stop her and all her friends getting offed by this supernatural entity. And that is your movie, basically. Quite an interesting idea in a lot of ways, and quite a lot of this film actually works pretty well. The performances are okay for the most part. I think the actress that plays Bird is, I think, particularly good. She plays a role quite vulnerably and comes across quite well. Some of the other teens are a bit generic, the kind of teens you've seen over and over again in movies like this, even though nobody gives what I would call a particularly terrible performance here. Like I said earlier, I think this film would have massively benefited from an R rating. It's just too tame, and when there's a death in this film, it cuts away, and you can hear what's happening to the character, but you don't see what's happening, generally speaking, to the character. And I think that's a real shame. It would have ramped up the horror massively, because it does have some fairly effective scares going on in this film at times. It doesn't, from what I remember, it doesn't give you cheap jump scare after jump scare like a lot of these teen horrors do. It actually builds tension quite effectively at times. I think it's a bit too dark. There's a few scenes, and it does kind of explain it, how this creature is almost stronger in the dark, as when photographing in like dark rooms and stuff, they do a lot better, all that kind of stuff. They do kind of explain it away. However, it makes it actually quite difficult to watch at times because it is so dark, and it makes it hard to follow. I had an issue with the character, the Bird character, putting two and two together a bit too quickly for my liking. There's one character turns up dead, and then another one fairly quickly, and she almost immediately puts it together that it has to be connected to this camera. And then she tries to convince everybody else. Of course they don't believe her, and then something else happens, and then they're all on board. And of course, when they go looking for the history of this camera, they find it all a little bit too conveniently and a little bit too quickly for my liking as well. So yeah, there are some convenient plot devices in the film, as there always are, but it keeps the film moving, I suppose. It keeps it going along at a nice pace. And I think this film would have been far more effective with a stronger rating, with a bit more gore, a bit more horror elements. But as it stands, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 because I actually found it quite an effective horror film with a really, really clever idea. I know we've seen similar concepts like this before, but they run with it here, and they try and do something a little bit different with the idea. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. It's certainly watchable. I must admit, when I was about to watch this film, I was expecting to absolutely hate it, and I certainly didn't. I thought it was well made and pretty enjoyable throughout, and certainly better than some of those terrible ones I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it might be worth a try, guys, if you're into this sort of horror. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time on Screen Stars.